The stage lights glowed bright inside the Late Show studio. The crowd was buzzing, eager for laughs, applause lines, and the kind of biting political humor Stephen Colbert had made his trademark. But this night was different. Among his guests sat Karoline Leavitt, the youngest national press secretary in U.S. history, and one of the fiercest defenders of Donald Trump. Her presence on the show was already controversial. Critics had called it a mismatch, a setup, even a trap. Colbert, known for his wit, was expected to dismantle her with sarcasm and punchlines. Yet Leavitt had agreed anyway, walking onto the stage with a calm smile, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The interview began lightly enough jokes about politics, light banter about her age, and the usual Colbert humor. But as the conversation turned serious, Colbert's tone shifted. Leaning forward, his expression sharpened. "Karoline," he said with that familiar smirk, "you're young, you're smart, and yet you've decided to tie your future to one of the most divisive figures in American history. Don't you ever feel like you're just a mouthpiece, repeating lines for a man who thrives on chaos?" The audience chuckled. Colbert's fans expected him to win. They laughed because they thought he already had. But Leavitt didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in closer, her eyes steady, her voice calm yet piercing. "Stephen, I expected you to say something like that. Because people like you don't see young conservatives as individuals. You see us as caricatures, easy targets, punchlines. But here's the truth. I didn't grow up with fame or fortune or a late-night TV platform. I grew up in a middle-class family in New Hampshire, where my father worked long hours, where my mother sacrificed everything to make sure her kids had opportunities. I chose this path not because it was easy, but because I believe in something bigger than myself." The audience quieted. The laughter had stopped. Colbert shifted in his chair, his smirk fading as she continued. "You call me a mouthpiece, but I call myself a fighter. Because when I stand up for Donald Trump, I'm not just standing up for one man. I'm standing up for the millions of Americans who feel ignored by people in power, people who sit in studios like this one and laugh at them night after night. They don't want me to be quiet. They don't want me to roll my eyes at their pain. They want me to speak, and that's what I'm doing." The silence deepened. A few people in the audience began to clap. Slowly, more joined in. It wasn't the kind of roaring applause Colbert usually drew. It was something deeper, a recognition. Colbert, clearly caught off guard, tried to interrupt with another joke, but Leavitt wasn't finished. "You can insult me, Stephen. You can call me naive or blind or say I'm wasting my talent. But what you can't do is take away my voice. Because every time you mock me, every time you dismiss me, you prove why I fight. And if standing up for what I believe in makes me unpopular in this room tonight, so be it. I'd rather walk out of here knowing I stood for something than laugh my way into silence." The crowd erupted. This time, it wasn't polite clapping. It was a standing ovation. Even some who had come expecting to jeer were now applauding her courage. Colbert sat back, stunned, his witty comeback nowhere to be found. The camera zoomed in on his face as he forced a smile, but the power of the moment had already shifted. By the next morning, the clip was everywhere. Social media exploded. Karoline Leavitt shuts down Colbert. Late night turns serious after Colbert insults Leavitt. Millions of views poured in within hours. To some, she became a symbol of defiance against the mockery of elites. To others, she was proof that conviction could silence even the sharpest satire. But the deeper story wasn't about winning or losing a debate. It was about the courage of one young woman who refused to let her beliefs be reduced to a punchline. Her calm, passionate defense wasn't just a moment on TV. It was a reminder to millions of viewers that no matter how loud the laughter, truth spoken with conviction always cuts through. That night, Karoline Leavitt didn't just defend herself. She gave a voice to everyone who had ever been mocked, dismissed, or underestimated. And in doing so, she left an entire audience and one of the most famous comedians in the world absolutely speechless.